Welcome, Valpo fans, to another edition of the Valpo Coaches Show, brought to you by Lakeshore Bone and Joint Institute. I'm Aaron Levitt, joined today by the head coach of the Valpo softball program, Mike Armitage. Coach Armitage, thanks for being here.
It's my pleasure. Appreciate you having me.
Before we talk about the results so far this spring, I want to go back to you coming into the program as a first-year head coach. This is the second straight program you've come into where you're trying to turn things around off and on the field. How do you go about doing that, and what do you learn from your time at MSU Moorhead that you've been able to implement here?
Yeah, I think the first thing I think is when you come into a program like this, the first few things that you do have to be done with truth and they have to be correct. Meaning, I can't tell them here's what we're going to do and then we don't do it. Things like that. So right away, you have to build that trust with the players. I think they did a very good job of trying to accept what we were trying to either change or tweak or whatever. And culture is the focal point. I've said it multiple times. I mean, the first year of a program is very much a foundation year, and we're really, really trying to build a strong foundation so that in future years when kids come in, that it's done differently from the jump. It's not done differently because we're facing an obstacle or whatever. It's done differently because that's just the way you do it. So I think those are the things, just how you set things up for not just that particular year, but years to come. Certainly the year that you have, and obviously our current year we have right now is the big one. And sometimes you have to say some things to some kids that you don't intend for that to be, hurtful. But I do think that you owe them honesty. And I think every competitor wants to know where they stand. And sometimes when you actually hear that, it stings a little bit. But later on, at least where you stand and you have a particular place to start fighting from. And I think that word fight has been a key word in our practices and in our games multiple times, because I think it's easy when you've had multiple years like we've had the last 4 or 5 years, that to kind of say as a team or as an individual, here we go again, and we're not going to be as successful as we maybe thought we could have been. So I think we just try and turn that and almost in game, in practice, like look for those situations where kids could possibly think that, or you could read their body language and they are thinking that, or at least you believe they are. And then that's the teaching point. Here's the time. This is the great example. Here's an opportunity to prove yourself that this is going to be different. So we say that quite a bit. We were playing in Lindenwood and we were getting handed to us by Western Illinois. And I'm like, look, it's up to you guys. I mean, if you want to fight, then let's go fight, but if not, then okay, we'll roll over and then we'll play again tomorrow, but they really fought hard. We did not end up winning that game, but we were down. We were facing a run rule, probably like 10 or 11-1 in the fifth. And they fought back really hard. I think we ended up losing by 3 or 4 runs that game, but their fight, just changed. And I think if you can do that, now you've got something you can build on. So that's what we've tried to put in here. And with my experience from MSUN, as far as that goes, I mean, that first year was very much a foundation year. And then we brought some players, added on with a couple of freshmen there, and then brought a transfer or two over. And then before you know it, they kind of married up with the current players that we had. And we found out, hey, if we do this the right way, we can be successful, not just moral victories. We can be successful in the win-loss column. So that's what we did there. It's the theory or the practice that I use. I think it's very simple, but at the same point, I think it shows over time that it works.
That's a little, but the non-conference, by the program's recent standards, pretty successful pre-conference, 11-9 record. Although I'm sure you'd say you should have had a few more wins in there.
Yeah,
Um,
coaches, coaches.
that notwithstanding, and you touched on this a little, but did you see the team growing through that pre-conference, kind of learning how to win and then learning how to expect to win games?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's the three main elements: all offense, defense, and then pitching is kind of on its own little thing there because it can help both sides. So I think we relied heavily on our pitching earlier on. I think there's been some times where our offense has really helped us out a little bit, and there's been some games where kind of all three haven't really been there, and those are games that whether we're playing good competition or competition we feel we could compete and beat, we usually end up on the short end of the stick because we're not a team that can just come to the park and than just, throw on our uniform and go out and get a win with just athletic ability or skill. So we really have to go there mentally ready to play. Otherwise, our physical is not going to follow in a good way. So I really think that's it's been the main focus. I mean, through the whole preseason, if you will. I mean, did I see some growth? Yeah, but I also knew that there was going to be some steps back in order to move forward too. So sometimes you do take one step back, two steps forward, or sometimes two back and one forward. So there has been some growth. I like the idea that we're not happy when we lose. It has not been a fun camp, I mean, the last week or so up until our last victory on Saturday, but at the same point, it was a good bad taste in your mouth. Like it wasn't accepting. It was okay. We've got to do something different in order to make this go away. So it's what you're kind of shooting for. I mean, you can only ask, so much of your players as far as the expectations of when failure happens or when an obstacle comes up. You can only ask them to fight as hard as they can. If it's not there, then it's not there. Sometimes. In baseball games or softball games, you throw great pitches and the hitter hits it out of the park. It's not that you did anything bad, but did you do everything you could? And that's the message that we're trying to send through the preseason. And I do see some growth with that. We asked some players to play multiple positions. They've been a few people have been kind of utility kids for us. We asked an infielder to go play the outfield. I think she was doing an excellent job in the outfield for us, and she was really starting to figure it out at the plate a little bit more. Unfortunately, she got a season-ending injury with her hand, so she's unable to help us out. But as that stuff happens, I mean, now there's more doors that open for other people to get out there and maybe get regular innings, or for us to be able to test other people in more of a three bat instead of a pinch hit situation. So yeah, I see some growth. I really do. And as you kind of alluded to earlier on, I mean, we always want to accelerate that process, but it is a process, and we have to trust that process that we're going to continue to progress.
Started a Missouri Valley Conference play a few weekends ago, and you know this from your time at Illinois State. The returnees know as well. The Valley can be a beast week in and week out. You're sitting at 2-6 through 3 weekends of conference play. Before those 6 losses, we were right in the game, late in the game, had a shot at the win. Is that just a case where players need to lock in and recognize in these conference games the margins are so slim that any little thing can be the difference between winning and losing?
Yeah, and I think sometimes it's not even the focus isn't really on the sixth inning or the seventh inning. Like we need to have that focus through all seven, because something that happened, maybe we kick it around, maybe make a bad throw, whatever, something that allows them to get an extra out, so we got to get 4 outs or 5 outs. Even if they don't score that inning, it still gets them another at bat deeper, another chance for the top of the order to see a fourth at bat or a fifth at bat. Most of the time, I can't think of a game this year really where we've had a pitcher, start and go all seven and just dominate. But so I don't think it's going to be seeing the same, pitcher for 4 or 5 at bats. But at the same point, at your fourth or fifth at bat, no matter who's pitching, you should be pretty well dialed in for that day, and as you said, there's so many good hitters, there's so many good players in our conference. It's really tough to ask that of your pitching staff. So when we look at the games that we should have won or games we were very competitive in, yeah, I mean, you can look at a number of things. It's you lose by 1 point in a basketball game, and then you can look at your free throws and go, yeah, we only made 4 out of 8. I mean, so there's things throughout the game that we have to do better in order to be in a better situation in the end. But I will say, I'm proud of the fact that we have been giving ourselves opportunity. I'm proud of the fact that our kids don't just go, okay, 3 more outs and we're out of here. We'll go get a meal and go back to the hotel. I mean, they do fight to the end. I'm very proud of that. I think that's a good sign of a team that wants to do well, a team that really is understanding that there's certain things we need to do better. So that piece is good. However, playing at the Division I level, we have to have a certain level of results, a certain level of performance, and that just comes with preparing more. And some of this is, I'm not blaming this, but some of this is still a little bit of residue from the last 4 or 5 years, because we have a lot of kids on this team, whether they're in the lineup or not. We have a lot of kids on this team that still, their only softball or college softball experience has been what we've experienced the last 2, 3, 4 years. So it's tough for them just to flip a switch and go, oh, okay, here's how we're going to do it this year. I would love it because I'd be flipping switches left and right to find that right one. But the bottom line is that's a process itself that it has to go through. So there's games that we should win that we have not won. There's teams that, in my opinion, I feel like even up and down the lineup, we were better than, but we did not win that game. So I guess every opportunity you go on the field, you got an opportunity to prove, and that's just that. I mean, I think Evansville this last weekend was a good ball team. They hit the ball really well. You know, I think they pitched it okay, they defended okay, but I think they hit the ball really well. And the bottom line is we were in every game. I could make a case in every game that we played this weekend and said we should have won that game. But because of some of the residue that we have, we didn't. So job for us as coaches to fix, a job for our players to accept and keep hammering away and keep trying to fix it themselves.
And the Evansville series, you're playing from behind pretty much the entire series, all three games. But you talk about wanting to see the team fight till the end. How rewarding is it as a coach to see that fight pay off in the series finale with the walk-off win?
Yeah, I mean, I've said this before too. Bottom line, you got a 3 game set. If you're 0-2, you're obviously not in the situation you want to be in. But you're going to look back and when it's time to reflect at the end of the year and go, we should have won at least one of those. So I am very proud of the fact that they do fight. I think at times we have to remind them to fight. I think those times are becoming less, but at the same point, I think our dugout brings pretty solid energy. I think our play out in the field is working their butt off to try and get better. I just think there's times where we're just unsure, and I think it's more of a mental thing than it is a physical thing. We don't put kids out there that can't physically do the job, so it's more of a mental thing. And once we're able to get through that and get comfortable with being successful and having expectations and knowing that people are counting on you, I mean, once we get comfortable with that, I think we're going to be winning a lot of ball games. But we've got a few miles to travel before we can get to that point, and it's not always going to be a smooth road. So we'll keep fighting just like our kids are, and we'll see where that road takes us, I guess.
Week for the softball program this week, 5 Valley games on the road, a doubleheader Tuesday at UIC, and then a weekend series at Bradley. Coach Armitage, thanks for joining me today. Good luck this week and going forward.
All right. Thanks a lot, Aaron. Appreciate it.
This has been the Valpo Coaches Show, brought to you by Lakeshore Bone and Joint Institute.